So political parties have questioned the timing of Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane's suspension. In a statement yesterday, President Cyril Ramaphosa says that she'll remain suspended until her impeachment hearing is concluded. And this is a parliamentary committee, and it's as a parliamentary committee, I beg your pardon, forges ahead with an inquiry into Mkhwebane's fitness to hold office. At the same time, the Public Protector herself has confirmed that her office will be probing the robbery at Ramaphosa's Limpopo farm. So what impact does her suspension have on perhaps this investigation, other investigations as well that her office is busy with? For this and many other related issues, let's bring in retired Judge Dennis Davis, who's with us via our video link this morning. And it's lovely to have you on the program. Thank you so much for making time. I mean, there's no doubt, at least in my head, that the President is empowered by the Constitution to carry out the suspension. I think the clause is in Section 194. But many people will also add that there is a political leg to this development. So I guess then, the morning after, what questions should we be asking about what's taken place here?
Well, I suppose you could argue, I mean, obviously there's going to be the implication that given what's happened with what you call Farmgate, that there were some political connotations. I don't, whether they are or not, I don't know. Many people, on the other hand, will say it's about time. We have to realize, I mean, just how many decisions of courts have gone against the Public Protector. In fact, I can't think of any case in which there's been a controversial decision taken by the Public Protector, whether it be in relation to the President, whether in relation to the Reserve Bank, whether it be in relation to Minister Pravin Gordhan, in which the decision of the Public Protector has been upheld. And we know as well that a huge sum of money, she herself has admitted it, vast sums of taxpayers' money have been used fruitlessly in these defences, which quite clearly never really had any legal merit. And then on top of that, we've got punitive costs orders against the Public Protector, where courts have actually said, you have to pay yourself. We don't know whether they were paid. So the question has always been, well, when on earth is she going to be suspended, given you were, as it were, a litany of judicial condemnation of her conduct? So that's one side. The other side, which is your point, well, given the fact that she's now seeking to investigate some of the aspects of the robbery at the farm, well, is this now just another political ploy by the President, which indicates sort of disturbing political interference? I suppose the answer to that is, one, I don't know, two, this. Assuming for the purpose of debate that he's conflicted, that people say he's conflicted because she's investigating him, she's conflicted too, on a personal level, because given what I've just said, she was always going to be liable to suspension once the process in Parliament had begun. And let's recall that a retired Constitutional Court judge, together with two very distinguished silks, had held that there was a prima facie case against her. So the truth was there was always going to be the investigation, and the investigation should be accompanied by a suspension. And number three, that doesn't stop, and I think the President's statement says it doesn't stop the Public Protector's office from investigating him or anything else for that matter. In other words, the rest of the Public Protector's office can proceed, and if there is merit, and I'm not prepared to opine on that, on these issues with regard to the President, well then the Public Protector's office will do so, absent the one person who has a vested interest in this, given the fact that she was always liable for suspension.
Right. Among the other questions being asked this morning is whether or not the President could have afforded to wait 24 more hours for the High Court in the Western Cape to deliver its judgment about whether or not the impeachment process itself will go ahead. And the reason why those questions are being asked is no matter how the court decides or what the court decides today, it's going to look as if the President had a hand in that judgment too, because he announced ahead of the ruling itself that he's suspending her.
Yes, I can understand that. And one does not know what is going to happen today in that court. But on the other hand, let us assume for the purpose, I suppose that's true. And thinking about that, 24 hours would have been prudent in this particular regard. But let me ask you this. Assuming that the judgment, and I haven't the foggiest idea which way that judgment would go, but can we just make the assumption for the moment that the judgment would go against the Public Protector? Do you not think that it would be par for the course that the matter would then be appealed to the Supreme Court of Appeal and or the Constitutional Court. I mean, at the end of the day, there's been Stalingrad litigation on this. And maybe what people should ask themselves is, to what extent does the rule of law come out better in this situation? The negative will be what you've just told me, and I accept that. The positive will be, well, finally, we've got to the point where you've got somebody where there's a prima facie case of utter incompetence. Again, prima facie, it just has to be proved. Do we just allow such a person to continue without any fetters? That's the question you have to ask. And let's be quite honest about it. The Public Protector's Office, since the present Public Protector came into office, has been a problem one way or the other. Why do I say that? Because of all the adverse judgments against her.
Yeah. You might know better than I do, Judge Davis, how, any office, any Chapter 9 institution comes to putting together a report before it gets to the public. There have been conversations around whether or not it's just Busisiwe Mkhwebane or Busisiwe Mkhwebane's office that should have questions coming their way about how they've handled various cases. I mean, how much of a unilateral decision-making process is there within that office, especially as we reflect on how she came to some of her findings?
Well, let me put it this way. I have no idea, right? And it's perhaps speculation. The only thing I can say to you is, when the previous Public Protector, Professor Thuli Modonsela, now Professor Thuli Modonsela, was the Public Protector, can I rhetorically ask the question, how many times were her decisions reversed by the courts? And the answer to that is a damning indictment of the present situation. And one must assume that many of the complement of the Public Protector's Office who were there at that period are still there. But it also makes a different point which emerges from this, which is how much more powerful would it be, let us assume, that the Public Protector's Office comes out with an adverse report on the President now. How much more powerful would that be that it was done absent this present Public Protector?
Fair enough. There is, of course, this moment of uncharted territory that we're in. I don't think we've ever been in a situation where the President effectively suspends a head of a Chapter 9 institution. And we're all hoping that this won't have any kind of impact on the operations of the office itself, especially given the fact that the office is also investigating part of an alleged crime committed by the President. But in your memory, what kind of impact could this have, if any, on how this Chapter 9 institutions moves forward?
I would hope it would have none,
on
the basis that maybe a positive one. And we know, just from reports, and I don't know how accurate they are, but we seem to know, at least broad inference, that there have been some tensions within the staff of the Public Protector, contradictory statements coming out from certain people against others. It seems to me, I would make the assumption, a safe assumption, that there are many, many people in the Public Protector's Office who are dedicated, thoughtful, and competent people, and I would hope that they would continue with their work without fear or favor. And were there to be further interference by anybody supporting the President, then I think we would be in very serious trouble. The Public Protector's Office should be allowed now to get on with its job, and hopefully, whatever it does, to be assessed on the merits thereof. And I would assume there are enough people in the Public Protector's Office to do that.
Plenty to think about. Judge Dennis Davis, always appreciate your time. Thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. Judge Dennis Davis is a retired judge of the High Court of South Africa.